What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel. And as we essentially round out the big splashy period of free agency, I mean, there's still a couple moves that need to drop, but the meat and potatoes are done. We're on to like a crappy dessert that you don't necessarily want. That's what we're still waiting on. All the big moves have been had, so we're going to do our roundup here. We're going to throw out grades for all 32 NFL teams, in my opinion, how they handled themselves in free agency. And after this video, it's pretty much going to start spiraling into, we got obviously a couple more rebuilds that we're going to do with some of these big moves. We're going to get obviously back in the rotation of realistic rebuilds, of Rip City, of pink slips. And then we're going to get into as well draft videos, 32 team mock draft. Going to go through all the teams. That's going to start very shortly because at least now we had to wait until like the first wave of free agency happens so that we can understand what teams' needs were going to be, what needs were assessed and addressed in free agency and remain to be had in the NFL draft. So without further ado, we're actually going to go alphabetically. It's how I did this. We're going to start with Arizona, and we're going to go all the way down to the Washington Redskins. So starting with the Arizona Cardinals, I kind of like in my notes, I just put a positive and a negative. Plus means that was a player they acquired. Negative means a player they got rid of. So the Arizona Cardinals brought back Larry Fitzgerald on a one-year deal. They got Kenyon Drake on the franchise tag. They signed Jordan Phillips on a 3-year, $30 million after a breakout year with the Bills. They brought in Devon Kennard and Devondre Campbell at linebacker. And obviously the big thing is they got rid of David Johnson, a second and fourth round pick, to acquire DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston Texans. They straight up found a way to acquire the best wide receiver in the National Football League. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Arizona Cardinals are getting an A+ for that DeAndre Hopkins trade alone. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit quieter for the Atlanta Falcons. They got Tyler Davidson. They signed him on a 3-year, $12 million. They traded for tight end Hayden Hurst as well as a fourth round pick from the Baltimore Ravens, and they got rid of a second and a fifth. They signed Dante Fowler to a 3-year, $45 million deal, which I really do like, especially with Dan Quinn there as the head coach. They got rid of Desmond Trufant and Devontae Freeman, and also just today signed Todd Gurley, who was kind of a surprise cut from the LA Rams. There's no word on what that contract is outside of it being a one-year deal. So for me, for my money, you know, given Gurley's knee and stuff, I still probably would rather Todd Gurley and Devontae Freeman. I'm going to give them a C+. It was some good and some bad. I think the Hayden Hurst trade was not particularly good, but he was a first-round pick. Maybe they can tap into that and get similar production from what they lost in Austin Hooper. But, you know, it's not a bad C+, not a bad grade. It's just there's a lot more questions than answers right now when you look at the Atlanta Falcons and how they handled free agency. Moving to the Baltimore Ravens, they moved on from Tony Jefferson. Marshall Yanda retired. As we talked about, Hayden Hurst got traded away for a second and a fifth. They franchise tagged Matt Judon. They traded for Calais Campbell and re-signed him to a 2-year, $25 million deal. They brought in Michael Brockers from the Rams, 3 years, $30 million. Brought back Gus Edwards. I mean, they handled business. I'm giving the Baltimore Ravens an A-. They got a little bit younger. Obviously, Marshall Yanda, you can't really hold that too much of a negative when a player retires, but it is worth noting that that is a hole that was created on this team. But the business they did getting for what they did for Hayden Hurst, making sure they kept Matt Judon, bringing in Calais Campbell. This is a team that is in a win-now mode. Great job for Baltimore, as always. The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills brought in Josh Norman on a $6 million deal on 1 year. They re-signed Quentin Spain. They brought in Mario Addison over from the Carolina Panthers, 3 years, $30 million. They brought over Vernon Butler from the Carolina Panthers. They brought in A.J. Klein, who was also with McDermott during his time with the Carolina Panthers. And obviously the big trade. They acquired Stephon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings. They gave up a first, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I think ultimately, while Diggs obviously is a known asset, that is a lot to give up for Stephon Diggs. I'm not going to say it's a negative. I just think it was a fair trade. When in a world where we saw what DeAndre Hopkins went for, and then you see what Stephon Diggs went for, like, the Bills paid a fair price for a wide receiver of Stephon Diggs' caliber. So I'm going to give them a B+. It was a pretty good offseason for the Buffalo Bills, bringing in a lot of familiar faces from Carolina to help bolster already one of the best defenses in the AFC. And obviously Stephon Diggs is a much-needed weapon for Josh Allen. Take a look at the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers got rid of Trey Turner, and they acquired Russell Okung in that trade with the Chargers. They got rid of Don Terry Poe. They got rid of Eric Reed. They got rid of Greg Olsen. Obviously, Luke Kuechly retired. It's pretty much safe to put this in stone that Cam Newton is no longer going to be a member of the Carolina Panthers. They brought back Trey Boston on a 3-year, $18 million deal. They signed Teddy Bridgewater to be the new franchise quarterback. 3 years, $63 million. I am not a believer in Teddy Bridgewater. I'm giving Carolina a D. I don't really know. Obviously, it's a change in coaching staff, change in philosophy, and there was going to be way more losses than gains for the Panthers here. A lot of times when you get a brand new coaching staff, that's kind of what happens. They come in and they kind of purge a little bit. So it's going to be tough anyways for Carolina to get a positive grade. But I'm just seeing a lot of I still don't get any reason why you would slip Trey Turner for Okun. I mean, Teddy is Teddy. That's not, if you're looking at the quarterbacks that are available in free agency, yeah, he's there. But you also pick at pick 7, and I probably would rather one of the quarterbacks they could probably get at pick 7, Justin Herbert. You might Jordan Love versus, say, a Teddy Bridgewater. So I'm giving them a D. Chicago Bears. So the Bears, they lost Kyle Long to retirement. Prince Amukamara, Taylor Gabriel all got released, as well as Leonard Floyd. They re-signed Jenny Trevathan. They brought in Robert Quinn on a 5-year, $70 million deal. They traded for Nick Foles and gave up a 4th to acquire his service. And they signed Jimmy Graham to a 2-year, $16 million. It's just a lot of, I don't know, man. I think Robert Quinn, I think that's outrageous money to pay for Robert Quinn, but I also think he's still very good. He was really, really good for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to give the Bears a C. It's there is some negatives. It's one of those things. Are the Bears better than what they are? Obviously, there's a big unknown with Nick Foles. And they give up a decent pick, a 4th-round pick for Nick Foles. Essentially, like, the Jags wanted to dump his salary anyways. I think a C is fair for the Bears. They kind of like balanced out. They're still in the middle, and I still don't think they've done enough. They need to have a good draft to really expect to compete next year, I think, in the NFC North. Going to the Cincinnati Bengals, not a lot of moves here, but they got rid of Cordy Glenn's kind of ugly contract. They franchise tagged AJ Green, which is great because we assume they're going to draft Joe Burrow at pick 1, and he needs weapons. They brought in DJ Reader, 4-year, $53 million. They brought in Trey Waynes, 3 years, $42 million. And they brought in Mackenzie Alexander, so doubling up on the Minnesota Vikings corner set free agency. I thought these are pretty good moves. I'm going to give them a B-. I just think DJ Reader's a run stuffer. That's a lot of money for a run stuffer. He's very good at his job. And should be pairing really nicely there with an aging Geno Atkins. Keeping AJ Green's obviously good. Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander. It wasn't a bad offseason. It just wasn't spectacular. So a B- I think is pretty good. Cleveland Browns. So the Browns, what do we got here? The Browns got rid of Christian Kirksey. And that's really it for the negatives. They brought in Austin Hooper on a 4-year, $42 million, making him one of the highest paid, I think the highest paid actually tight end in the league. Jack Conklin came over from the Tennessee Titans, 3 years, $42 million. They kept Kareem Hunt. They brought in Case Keenum. They traded for fullback Andy Janovich from the Denver Broncos. Got in Carl Joseph. They brought in Andrew Billings. So a lot of additions here for the Cleveland Browns. Even though some of the contracts, especially Austin Hooper, is a little bit suspect that they're deviating that kind of money to a position that they already have David Njoku. Obviously, Hooper is a little bit more reliable with his hands. I'm giving the Browns a B+. Good business so far. The Browns, nothing too outrageous. And Jack Conklin is a great get for a team that I thought last year the 2 worst starting tackles in the NFL. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. This one pains me to say when I look at the grade that I gave them in my notes. So they franchise tagged Dak Prescott. They signed Amari Cooper to a 5-year, $100 million deal. Re-signed Blake Jarwin. Re-signed Sean Lee. Re-signed Anthony Brown. Brought in Gerald McCoy on a 3-year, $18 million deal. And they also got Clinton Dix on a 1-year deal. I'm giving them an A. Really, Dallas came into this. We know that they were going to lose Byron Jones. He was going to go on and get paid, and he ultimately did by the Miami Dolphins. But they kept Dak Prescott there. They kept Amari Cooper. Pretty much, they did as much as they could. They did a pretty good job with their salary cap, and it pains me to give the Dallas Cowboys an A, but they did their job. They did their business, and they got some interesting guys on the defense in Clinton Dix and McCoy that I think are going to be some solid veterans. Moving on to the Denver Broncos, and we actually had to update this one right before I started recording this because they made a big signing. The Denver Broncos, they traded for A.J. Boye. They lost a 4th-rounder. I still think I'd rather A.J. Boye than a 4th-rounder, so that's good business. They tagged safety Justin Simmons. They brought in Graham Glasgow, 4-year, $44 million. Pretty solid guard. They lost Andy Janovich in a trade. They acquired Jarrell Casey for a 7th-rounder from the Tennessee Titans. They got rid of Joe Flacco's ugly contract, and they just signed Melvin Gordon. So, anytime you could take away from your divisional rival, make them worse, you get better. It's always a little bit extra bonus. So I'm giving the Denver Broncos an A. They've done a very, very good job. Vic Fangio was not happy with his team's performances last year, and I think he's done a lot of steps to make the Denver Broncos that much more impactful. It could be very interesting to see who they draft in the first round. Moving to the Detroit Lions. Oh, boy. So the Lions got rid of Snacks Harrison. They got rid of Rick Wagner. They signed Danny Amendola to a 1-year deal. They signed Big V away from the Philadelphia Eagles, 5-year, $45 million. They got Chase Daniel. They brought in a lot of Patriots here. They got Jamie Collins on a 3-year, $30. They traded a 5th-round pick for Deron Harmon. They signed Desmond Trufant, 2-year, $21 million. They traded Darius Slay away, lockdown corner to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 3 and a 5. Again, it's just one of those things. You look at this. Did the Detroit Lions get better? I think it's hard to say they did. They very easily and measurably have gotten worse. So I'm going to give the Detroit Lions here a D-. But hey, as an Eagle fan, thank you very much for Darius Slay. Staying in the division, we have the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers retained Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis. They got rid of Jimmy Graham. They brought in Rick Wagner over from the Detroit Lions, 2 years, $11 million. And they got Christian Kirksey, who's often injured but solid linebacker. I'm gonna give him a D+. Just haven't been big time spenders. Haven't been making lots of moves, but there still is some. We look at the free agency. There's still probably 4 or 5 guys out there for sure that would bring a positive grade to any of these teams. And I expect Green Bay to maybe make a move at some point, but obviously they spent a lot of their money last year fixing that defense. Going to the Houston Texans. So the Texans re-signed Darren Fells. They re-signed Bradley Roby, 3-year, $36 million. They acquired David Johnson in a second and a fourth. They signed Eric Murray. They signed Randall Cobb to a 3-year, $27 million. But they get rid of DeAndre Hopkins in a 4th-round pick. This is an F. You got rid of your best player because your coach is an idiot. F, 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 F. And I like the Houston Texans. And if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm like, there is no chance in hell I am re-signing with this team when my rookie deal's up. I dare you, Bill O'Brien, to pick up my 5th-year option. Kind of deal. Sucks to see. I'm sorry, Houston Texan fans. Going to the Indianapolis Colts. So good with the Colts. They re-signed tackle Anthony Costanzo, 2-year, $33 million deal. They brought in Phillip Rivers on a 1-year, $25 million deal. They acquired DeForest Buckner and then signed into a 4-year, $84 million deal, and they gave up their 1st-round pick in the 2020 draft. I'm going to give them a B. They are in a win-now mode, and obviously acquiring Phillip Rivers kind of states that, and also giving up a 1st-round pick to acquire a tremendous defensive tackle. I just more so think the quarterback situation, you just kicked the can down the road. You didn't really solve it, so it's a B. A B is not a bad grade at all. It's just more so, what is the contingency plan at quarterback? Because now you're not going to be able to draft the heir to now Phillip Rivers with a 1st-round selection. Going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars all out, just dumping players. They got rid of A.J. Boye, but they did acquire a 4th-rounder. They got rid of Calais Campbell. They acquired a 5th-rounder. They tagged Ngakoue, but that's most likely he's going to be gone. It looks like there's a trade that's going to send him somewhere. They got rid of Nick Foles. They acquired a 4th-rounder. So they're getting not great value for players that they paid premium prices for. They brought in Derquise Denard. They backed that Brinks truck up to acquire the services of Joe Schobert, the former linebacker of the Cleveland Browns. 5 years, over $50 million deal. That's a lot of money for a linebacker that is kind of one-dimensional. So I'm going to give them an F, another F, our 2nd F handed out. It's in the same division of the AFC South. I think Jags, it was expected this was going to be really, really low because they kind of had to get rid of some of these older players. I just don't think they're getting tremendous value because teams around the league know they had to get rid of them. So they kind of put themselves in a tough hole, thanks to Tom Coughlin and company, that they need to slowly right the ship. It's going to be a rough year for Jags. But hey, you're probably in a great spot to tank for Trevor, which is good, which is bad if you like Minshew. Kansas City Chiefs, obviously not a lot of money. They picked up a team option on Damian Williams, and they franchise tag Chris Jones. I'm just going to give them a B because these were both expected moves, and they don't really have any money elsewhere to make any acquisitions. But the Super Bowl chance, they held on to 2 really good players, impactful guys that helped them win that title. Going to the Vegas Raiders. So the Vegas Raiders, they got rid of Tahir Whitehead, and then they straight up just signed the two of my highly rated linebackers on the market here. They got Nick Kwiatkowski, 3-year, $21 million, and Corey Littleton, 3-year, $35 million. They also brought in Marcus Mariota, Jason Witten, Carl Nassib, and Eli Apple. I'm going to give the Vegas Raiders a B. This could have been a B+. The only reason why it's not a B+ is just because they paid a decent amount of money to linebackers. Linebackers are a position that, how often do the high-paid linebackers really, especially when they hit free agency, go on to be impactful? Like C.J. Mosley got hurt, didn't really do a lot for the Jets. I don't know. That's really the only case I could think of. I just can't remember the last time a big money linebacker changed teams and just played really well. I feel like linebackers are a product of the... Either way, Vegas absolutely need to bring in linebackers. And I'm not dogging them. I'm just saying that's why it's a B and not, say, a B+. For the Chargers, so the Chargers acquired Trey Turner and got rid of Russell Okung. Amazing. They re-signed Austin Eckler. They franchise-tagged Hunter Henry. They brought in Brian Bulaga, 3-year, $30 million. They brought in Chris Harris, 2-year, $17 million. And they also brought in Linval Joseph. I'm giving, honestly, the Chargers, they were going to be an A until they announced that Tyrod Taylor's their starter. If that's what they're doing, I'm giving them a B. They're getting a B that should be an A if it wasn't, if their plan wasn't Tyrod. Because they're not. Go get Cam. I think Cam is overrated, but at least Cam Newton. I think I think Tyrod and Cam Newton are closer talent-wise than people would think at face value, but I do think I want to see Cam Newton in an Anthony Lynn offense. I think that that's going to be a little bit more beneficial. That would play to Cam Newton's strengths. They have the weapons there. But, yeah, this rating is definitely just helped by the fact that, like, are they going to draft a quarterback in the first round? Like, it's the unknown at quarterback makes it tough for the Chargers because obviously they lost Phillip Rivers to give them a much higher grade. But I really do think this, if I'm just looking at what they did and not what they have, if from based upon just the free agency moves, it'd be an A. But based on what they have now, looking at the roster, it's a B because that big question mark at quarterback. Looking at the Rams. So the Rams, Eric Weddle retired. They lost Nikel Roby-Coleman. They got rid of Todd Gurley. They re-signed Austin Blythe, Leonard Floyd on a 1-year $10 million. They re-signed Andrew Whitworth and brought over A'Shawn Robinson from the Detroit Lions. D. You got punished for paying Todd Gurley, a guy with banged up knees, a bad contract. You definitely lost more talent than what you've gained. So, when you look at what's coming in and what's going out there for the Rams, and the fact that they have no picks, no high picks whatsoever, I'm grading them as a D. I'm kind of viewing the Rams here in a bubble and not just purely on the free agency moves, which maybe is a little bit too harsh, but, it's my video. Looking at the Miami Dolphins. So the Dolphins, they brought in Kyle Van Noy on a 4-year, $50 million deal. They signed Eric Flowers to a 3-year, $30 million deal. I guess he's a serviceable guard. Paid big top dollar to bring in Byron Jones from the Dallas Cowboys, 5 years, over $80 million. They got Shaq Lawson, Jordan Howard, Camus Grugier-Hill, two very valuable players from the Eagles last year. I think they got good value there for their contracts. I'm giving Miami an A. They did a pretty good job here. Obviously, guys like Kyle Van Noy succeeded in a role in New England. He's going to probably operate in the same role there in Miami. Very underrated. They got a running back for pennies on the dollar. They got the best corner in free agency. Pairing that with Xavier Howard should be interesting. Should be exciting, and they have 3 first-round picks for this draft. Things are looking as good as they possibly could for the Miami Dolphins. Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings, they got rid of veterans. No more Everson Griffin, no more Xavier Rhodes, no more Linval Joseph. They got rid of Josh Klein, and they got rid of Stephon Diggs. They did acquire a first, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and they also signed Michael Pierce from the Baltimore Ravens to a 3-year, $27 million deal. I think at the end of the day, they broke even. I'm giving them about a C+. I think they got good value for Stephon Diggs, understanding that he probably wasn't going to want to come back. And I thought Michael Pierce, upgrading, getting younger over Linval Joseph, was good business. So I'm giving them a C+. New England Patriots. They didn't really lose Tom Brady, but you kind of have to talk about that. You don't have a quarterback anymore, especially if we're going to bring that up and hold it against the Chargers when we're giving them their grade. So New England lost Tom Brady. They re-signed Devin McCourty. They tagged Joe Thuney. They traded Duron Harmon for a 7th and a 5th. They signed Bo Allen and Adrian Phillips. D+. I still have no idea that the Patriots got rid of Tom Brady. Like, are they going to get Cam Newton? I don't know. Cam Newton does not seem like a fit whatsoever there. But it's like the least Patriot thing to be unprepared for life beyond Tom Brady. I'm just shocked. Maybe something's going to happen. I don't know. So, yeah, D. You're getting a, what would I give him? D+? Yeah, D+. New Orleans. So the New Orleans Saints re-signed David Onyemata. They re-signed Andrews Pete, 5-year, $57 million. They got re-signed Drew Brees, 2-year, $50. And they signed Malcolm Jenkins, bringing him back, 4-year, $32 million deal. B+. He probably could be a little bit higher. I just think they paid Andrews Pete a lot of money, more money than he should have, for a guy that's just a solid guard. But they got Malcolm Jenkins and Drew Brees. Win now mode for sure for the Saints. Not bad. Nothing really negative about their moves. So B+. It would be higher if the Pete contract was a little bit more reasonable. Going to the New York Giants. So the Giants, Eli Manning retired. They cut Alec Ogletree. And in terms of acquisitions, they got Blake Martinez on a 3-year, $30. Kyler Fackrell coming over from the Packers. They franchise tagged Leonard Williams. And they signed James Bradbury to a 3-year, $43 million deal. And most people could regard him as the second best corner on the market. I'm giving them a B-. I think the Blake Martinez contract's a little ridiculous. I think franchise tagging Leonard Williams is kind of ridiculous. But they absolutely got, I think, one of the best signings in terms of value and contracts in James Bradbury. So a B- here for the Giants. Looking at the Jets, have made a lot of moves here. They got George Fant, like a swing tackle on a 3-year, $27 million. Connor McGovern, 3-year, $27 million. He's an interior lineman. And they re-signed Brian Poole. Just not a lot of moves yet. Waiting to see what is going on with Robbie Anderson. I think Robbie Anderson most likely at this point is probably going to re-sign with the Jets. But we can only grade on what they've done so far, and I'm giving the Jets a C. Philadelphia Eagles. So let's see. The Eagles got rid of Nigel Bradham. They got rid of Malcolm Jenkins. They signed Jalen Mills. They re-signed Rodney McLeod. They added Javon Hargraves, 3-year, $39 million. They traded for Darius Slay in exchange for a 3 and a 5. Eagles getting a B+. Still have yet to address the wide receiver position, which I think they're going to do during the draft. But, the Darius Slay move, it's good. I didn't want to overrate the Eagles move. It could be like an A- because we landed Darius Slay and corner was the biggest need. But I'm just going to view it as, I'll give them a B+, a strong B+, trending towards an A-. Pittsburgh. All right, Steelers. Not a lot of moves here to talk about, so it's going to be nice and quick. They lost Ramon Foster to retirement. They franchise tagged Bud Dupree. They put up an option or something like that on Mike Hilton. He's still there. They signed Steven Wisniewski and Eric Ebron. Guy had like 16 touchdowns 2 years ago. They got him on a 2-year, $12 million. So that's definitely one of the better value contracts if he can regain that form out of all the free agency moves. I'm going to give Pittsburgh a C+. San Francisco, the 49ers got rid of DeForest Buckner and acquired a first-round talent. The reason why they did that is because they also re-signed Eric Armstead to a 5-year, $85 million deal. They re-signed Jimmy Ward. They put up options on Matt Breida and Kendrick Bourne. Niners getting a B+, which is tough considering that they got rid of arguably their most valuable defensive asset in DeForest Buckner and acquired a first-rounder. It's just, you got to work within the salary cap. I thought they got pretty good value there, so B+ for the Niners. Looking at the Seattle Seahawks, the Seahawks brought in Greg Olsen on a 1-year deal. They re-signed Jerron Reed. They brought back Bruce Irvin. They signed Brandon Shell, formerly the Jets, to a 2-year, $11 million deal. Let's get a C. Just average moves here for the Seattle Seahawks. Jerron Reed, obviously the best of the bunch. Tampa Bay. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tagged Shaq Barrett. They re-signed Jason Pierre-Paul to a 2-year, $25 million deal. And obviously the big news is bringing in Tom Brady on a 2-year, $50 million deal. I'll give him a B+. I'll give them a B+ because there was no long-term stability with Shaq Barrett until they hammered a long-term deal. And there's no long-term stability at the quarterback position because you have Tom Brady. So, it's a B+, obviously. Those are all three moves that are going to help the team. But forward thinking, it's very short-term. And I'm kind of holding the fact that these moves are such short-term moves. I can't grade it much more than a B. But it's like the Philadelphia Eagles, it's a very strong B+, trending towards an A-. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans, they got rid of Dion Lewis, Cam Wake, and Delaney Walker, as well as Jarrell Casey, while acquiring a 7th-rounder because they paid Ryan Tannehill a 4-year, $118 million deal. They franchise tagged Derrick Henry. They brought back Dennis Kelly. And I actually really like the fact that they got Vic Beasley on like a prove-it deal. Change of scenery could work wonders for him. Give them a B+. Only reason why it's not an A is just that Tannehill contract is very ugly. And I think it's very risky, and I think it's much more likely going to blow in their face like the Nick Foles to the Jags did than it will, say, working out. And I really hope, for the love of God, they pay Derrick Henry. And if I'm a Titan fan, I'm a little bit worried that Derrick Henry's going to see the contract that Ryan Tannehill got, and hold out. But still, they handled their business kind of like Dallas. They had two big names that they wanted to get back, and they did so, even though it cost them, essentially, Jarrell Casey. And then finishing up here with the Washington Redskins. The Redskins got rid of Jordan Reed and Paul Richardson. They franchise tagged Brendan Scherf. They brought back Thomas Davis to Ron Rivera defensive scheme, even though at this point, what does he really offer? And they also brought back Kendall Fuller on a 4-year, $40 million deal, as he was really good with the Redskins, but he was a part of that trade that let them acquire Alex Smith away from the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to give Redskins a B-. I think more so they dumped some pretty bad cap. They kept their best target there in Scherf. And maybe Kendall Fuller back in that scheme, especially. Obviously it's changing now because it's going to be Rivera and Jack Del Rio. But I'm going to assume that they're going to put Kendall Fuller in the right position. They're going to put him in this nickel, and he's going to get back to at least playing at a good starter quality level. So I'm going to give them a B-. So there you go, guys. Those are my grades here for free agency. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the grades I gave out for your teams. I think it's pretty on point. I try to do it as unbiasedly as possible, so let me know in the comment section. But we'll be back tomorrow. Either with, I'm going to spoil it. It's either going to be a Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins rebuild, or we're going to do like a Pinks or Rip City. Not sure exactly what order we're going to be doing, but you're probably, for the time being, for the realistic rebuilds, they're going to be put on hold as we get through some of these big free agency moves and just doing quick little previews style rebuilds for those moves in Madden 20. But thank you guys for watching. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.